Good morning, everybody, and welcome. What we all strive for is an effective, fair, and compassionate system that serves to protect our children. At the heart of this is the ability to put ourselves in a child's feet and know what it feels like. Central to this is kindness. Today we have Kismet Mayon, who is going to read for us her poem on kindness. She will remind us just what kindness is. Take it away, KIZZI.
When do we take a break to celebrate all types of mankind being kind? What does it take for mankind to celebrate all different types of kind? The kind that helps you through tough times, carrying your burdens one at a time, decriminalizing your past crimes. The kind that supports the recovery of those left blind in the systemic defeats of life. The kind that brings communities together who've endured pain or pleasure. Whatever stormy weather, that kind will make it better. So I ask again, what kind is it that makes mankind kind? The kind that empower your soul to help devour negative goals set by some with immoral roles, who claim to preach justice but don't know your worth as they wear their uniforms and don't stop to converse. People are pleased when the police is policed, as it helps refrain from all this negativity, all this bloodshed, when all our blood bleeds red. So what kind do we feel makes mankind kind? Is it the kind that fights for justice and what needs to be brought to light? The kind that understand the struggle of being left behind with the doors locked and shut blinds at times? You'd feel like you've lost your mind in trying to understand these socially tied lies in which our youth are led and advised by, amplified through gentrified designs without us in mind. But then what arrives in the glimpse to the corner? A big bright rover with a vanity-free chauffeur to drive you back and celebrate how you've got so far. As simple celebrations can act as remediation, and that kind trip down memory lane, and those soulful conversations showing you how to heal from your pain can make you realize your greatness as the healer creates positivity every day without forgetting the darkest of our days. For they can shape our way, but do not dictate our fate, as those trials and tribulations are in the past and will always have today. Be the kind we all need to survive. The kind we bring within our own circles over time, the kind brought by doctors or nurses, teachers or even shoppers. The mindful mind is always kind. And after today, I pray our children find it safe when in society's embrace.
Exhorting and inspiring us to be kind, to be creative, inclusive, and at our very best for children. I'd like now to introduce myself. I'm Annie Hudson. I'm chair of the national panel, known as The Panel. Welcome you to these rather august and somewhat patrician surroundings of the Institute of Engineering and Technology for what I hope and expect to be a day full of really good learning, good conversations that we can take back to the work and our colleagues who we work with every day. Firstly, a few housekeeping points. If you want to tweet, and I think we've somewhere got the reference on one of the slides, please use the tag at CSPR_panel with the hashtag reimagining child protection. If you want to tweet, and we encourage you to do that, but please be mindful of what you share. We want to have an open, honest dialogue today. So please think a bit about what you tweet in terms of visuals or the comments that other people have made. You need to be aware that we're filming the presentations today with a view to putting those on YouTube so that other people who were not able to join us can see what was being said. Other housekeeping bits, there are toilets on every floor. If there is a fire alarm, staff will guide you to the nearest exit. And the refreshments for the remainder of the day will be on the 3rd floor in the rather wonderful Riverside room overlooking the Thames. There are lifts up to the 3rd floor, but those of you who are feeling fit and are able to do so, there's also a couple of staircases. I think KIZZI's introduction today has kind of brought us back to what we're all here to do, which is to listen to and heed the voices and experiences of children. And it's been really important for us as we've designed and organised this conference that in different ways we're amplifying the voices and experiences and perspectives of children and young people. So you will see that in a range of different ways throughout the conference. We commissioned Deep Black, which is an organisation that works with young people doing photography, and they, on the panel's behalf, and you'll see lots and lots of photographs all around the conference venue and up here throughout the day. The output of their work was 27 young photographers, 6 to 16 years, from Newham, Southwark, Haringey, Barking and Dagenham. So, to the conference, what are we trying to do? What is it we wanted to do together during this day? We wanted as a panel to use our convening power to take stock and reflection across different aspects of child protection. Leaders, as much as practitioners, need intellectual and emotional nourishment to keep our brains alert and alive to different ways of thinking and doing things. And I think what we have in this room today is a community of practice, a community of practice leaders whose power, wisdom and leadership acumen can be used to learn and to change practice to better help children and young people and their families. And I want and hope that everyone will obviously listen to the presentations and use the reflections that different presenters will share with us during the day in the plenary and sub-plenary sessions, but also that you maximise the networking opportunities in the breaks. The context of the work of child protection is undoubtedly deeply challenging. The economic and social realities and insecurities of many children and families' lives. Too many children living in poverty and poor housing are not able to access the help that they need. Services and budgets under pressure. Workforce instability in many places with high levels of vacancies. And also, too, the somewhat crude and weak public understanding about the nature of the work that we do. So too often the work that you and your practitioners are doing is judged through the lens of a tragedy. But I also think that there is potency in the context. The English safeguarding system has, I think, proved to be very adaptive and responsive to change. And I think we should have some collective pride in that ability to respond to change. The responses to the kind of better understandings about extrafamilial harm, for example, much more to do, but we are way further along that journey of change and improvement compared to a few years ago. The quality of learning has gone from strength to strength. And as we said in our Child Protection in England report last year, although the international evidence is somewhat weak in this regard, there is on some measures clear evidence that we have one of the safest child protection systems, and that our investment, crucially, in learning and improvement puts us in a strong position to continue to improve. So why the title of Reimagining Child Protection? You may have thought the panel had gone soft in the head, or perhaps that we were plagiarising from a very important book by Brid Featherstone, Sue White and Kate Morris. But actually, the reason we went for this title is that we wanted to, firstly, capture the importance of thinking and acting together differently to tackle those knotty, perennial system issues and fault lines that too often undermine our ability to protect children from harm. And secondly, there is a kind of pivotal moment feel about this time, I think. We've had the publication of Stable Homes built on love, and I'm sure the Secretary of State will be talking about this in a few minutes' time. We've had the recent publication of the government's response to the ICSA final report. And then, quite recently, the panel has published its own Phase 2 report about the abuse of children in residential settings. And then, of course, we have about to come upon us the imminent consultation on the new continue working together. But it is true that many of those perennial and system-wide issues have a kind of Groundhog Day feel about them. People like myself who've been around for a long time will remember the inquiries into Jasmine Beckford, Maria Colwell, Tara Henry, and indeed on many, many reviews about residential care. But I don't think that should stop us or inhibit our resolve to tackle and bring the best minds, your minds, to think how we tackle these perennial issues. We have that, I think, unremitting duty to children and families. Three themes that sort of underpin the design of the conference. Firstly, the theme around critical analysis, challenge and curiosity, concept which pepper the reviews that you do in your local areas. So I think the question, and I know Anthony and Zoe will help us think about this, what can we do to better support and enable practice which looks more deeply at what's happening in children's lives, to ask those second-order questions, to be able to stand back and analyse and challenge one another to make sure that we're doing the best. And secondly, race and intersectionality, which is no less a perennial theme. I reread recently the Tara Henry report, so that, the Sukina Hammond report in 1991, Tara Henry was 1987, all brought into sharp relief those issues about race and racism. But there's a renewed urgency in the current context, not just because of the questions and issues provoked in terms of thinking about extrafamilial harm, the questions that were raised by the Hackney's Child Q review, other evidence, for example, about children in the care system from Nuffield Family Justice Observatory. We need to think carefully, and we will be doing this in a second plenary session, about how we make sense of and respond to race, ethnicity, the impact of racism, and the biases that we in our system bring at the same time as individualising every child and family. Unfortunately, Janine Davis has had a bereavement and will not be able to join us for that session, but we have Farah Khan from Leeds, and the panel will be generating a good interactive session on these really important issues later today. And then the final theme about multidisciplinary and multi-agency leadership. Slightly different, I won't go into the semantics there. The 2017 Children and Social Work Act ushered in some sea changes in how we lead and work together, but potentially we haven't fully materialised or realised the benefits that I think that can accrue from having that joined up sense of shared leadership at a local and a national level. Let's hope that working together says a bit more about that. But what does the best multi-agency leadership look like? It's much more than collaboration, more than cooperation, or indeed integration. I think it's about how we bring our distinctive roles, duties, and expertise, and we thread it together so we lead seamlessly. And I hope that that conversation about how we bring multi-agency leadership will thread throughout the day. There are three things in particular I think we can think about. Leadership to create healthy multi-agency decision-making environments. Leadership of relationships, good multi-agency relationships, and leadership of learning. In relation to that decision-making question, there's a lot, I think, that we can learn about the social and psychological shapers of decision-making, whether it's at a strategy meeting, a case conference, to really help us why people do things or don't do things, why the GP didn't contact the health visitor, why the social worker didn't go and see the child's bedroom, why health were not invited to the strategy meeting. And I think we can learn a lot from looking at the work of people like Daniel Kahneman in his, I think, rather wonderful book, Noise, about the impact of cognitive bias, mood, fatigue, emotional reactions, which will inevitably distort professional judgments. And they have lots of wonderful examples about how judges will come to different decisions depending on the time of day when they're giving their judgments, about psychiatrists coming up with differential diagnoses for different patients, and similarly with child protection. So we need to attend to that decision hygiene. In terms of multi-agency relationships, we ignore that at our peril. When multi-agency relationships flounder, as I certainly discovered when I first went to Lambeth in 2016, I think we can all literally take it out on children, becoming either punitive or too laissez-faire and non-interventionists. So there's much more that we can do in that area. And then leadership of learning, which in a way is what's brought us all here together. I am really optimistic about the capacity and will right across the system to learn from serious incidents, but also learn from good practice. Really impressed with the openness and clarity in the conversations, the many conversations we have with safeguarding partners when they're looking at complex issues, often in very uncharted territory, where leaders are coming together to really have their fingers on the pulse of practice, but to be able to stand back and identify how local systems need to improve. But there's more that we need to do. I think there's a lot more we need to do to understand what works in terms of the strategy of implementing learning. And that's one of the things we hope that we will pick up in our learning support capability project. But also, thank you, okay. I couldn't see it, sorry. It's so dark in here. One last thing. But also, I think we need to get better, and the panel should have a role in this, in sharing the excellent practice around learning that we see every fortnight in the panel. And I'm going to close with a quote from my sort of go-to thinker, Atul Gawande, who, writing in his book Being Mortal, said, "We need the courage to act on the truth of what we find, though the wise course is frequently unclear. So with child protection, leaders and practitioners must act together with wisdom and courage so that we do the right thing for children. We know that's not easy, but it's what we have to do." So that's, and I'm hoping, I can't see, thank you. So I'm going to now introduce the Secretary of State, who I think it's very difficult to see with this bright light. So can we please welcome onto the stage the Secretary of State for Education, Right Honourable Gillian Keegan MP. Gillian is going to speak for a bit, and then we're going to have a bit of a chat after that. Welcome.
Thank you, Annie. There's a flaw in the system, right, which is perfectly designed, apart from if you can't see outside from the stage. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Annie, and thank you, KIZZI, as well. KIZZI asks what it takes to heal pain so that somebody can realise their greatness. And it's a profound question that goes to the root of everything that you do. How do you protect children from violence and cruelty? How can you help them overcome that suffering and pain and rise above it, making the most out of every spark of potential that they have? And I'm in no doubt that what you do takes enormous courage, lots of it day in, day out. I know how tough your vocation is, and you have my deepest thanks for everything that you do to try and improve the lives of children. Where I grew up in Knowsley, near to Liverpool, almost 10% of the adults have no qualifications compared to a national average of 6.6%. So you won't be surprised to hear that Knowsley has had its fair share of social issues. Then I became the Member of Parliament for Chichester, with its picture postcard streets and medieval cathedral. No comparison, you might think. They're completely different places, different ends of the country. But as I'm sure you will know, there are deeply distressing cases of child abuse and harm that occur everywhere, no matter where the geography is. And that's one of the most shocking things, but also one of the things that you are always constantly vigilant about. I know a number of families in my constituency where children have been taken away from their parents because of severe neglect. And in my role as Cabinet Minister, there are few more harrowing things than I have to do than meet a family member of a child who has been killed. Of all the things that I've done in this job, this has to be the hardest, and it's one of the reasons that I'm so committed to our reforms on protecting children. But rest assured, I understand the pressures that you work with. I know how complex these cases are, with so many different agencies involved, from local authorities to schools and to health and to police at different times. High-profile cases like the tragic deaths of Arthur Labinjo Hughes and Star Hobson put child protection and children's social care very much under the spotlight, and it's uncomfortable because we have to be ready for scrutiny. It is uncomfortable, but we do know that we have to get better. There's no question that every child has the right to grow up in an environment that's safe and free from harm, and that we all have a responsibility to do whatever we can to make that happen. The trouble is that despite your incredible dedication, too many children do continue to be harmed. There can be few more horrific examples than the panel's recent review into the KIZZI group, residential settings, and through the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. So we're taking action and we're seizing the moment for change. We must work together to change the system, to keep children safe and to make sure that all children get the future they deserve. So working together is a huge part of the solution. And I've seen this for myself. A young mum suffered from anxiety and was struggling with her 2 boys. One was not only self-harming, but he was hurting his brother too. Her partner had lost his job and was battling with depression. This awful situation could have easily escalated. But thanks to the greater collaboration, thanks to you, it didn't. Mental health services realised that the whole family needed support and worked alongside social workers to help the family. This was a great example of joined-up support focused on preventing things from getting worse. Family hubs and Start for Life are great examples, and we're now working with 87 councils in England and focusing on access, connection and relationships. The Supporting Families programme, which has helped over 650,000 families, is also having a real impact. When we get it right, it really is incredible to see. It is transformative for all involved. And I know many of you are already working in a joined-up way brilliantly, and I want to congratulate you if you're part of a team that's doing this. Where you lead, others will follow. Collaboration is the golden thread that is going to knit our ambitions together, and we look to you to work together as partners, including with schools, to make sure that everybody knows what they should be doing and everybody feels empowered to act. For some, this will mean working in a slightly different way, and we'll be consulting on roles and responsibilities of safeguarding partners to promote greater consistency across local areas. It will, for instance, encourage a more strategic role for education because of the crucial insights that professionals in those settings can offer. One area where we've seen some spectacular results is Hertfordshire. It's virtual school, which actually takes place in a real school, with a confusing title, but it's supporting looked after children as they attend their regular educational setting. Recently, they've celebrated their first Oxbridge success. And since it launched in 2009, in-care students have been supported by a dedicated team who mentor them, who give them careers advice to make sure that they have every chance to achieve the very best they can in life. And let's just remind ourselves of what can happen when this doesn't happen. The differences in long-term outcomes between children in care and the wider population are stark. The rate of mental health disorders in the general population, aged 5 to 15, is 10%. For those who are looked after, it is 45%. For those who are in residential care, it is 72%. So Stable Homes Built on Love commits us to tackling this. Working with health partners, we are going to put an end to the shocking and unjust gap in mental and physical well-being for those in care. And I would not be standing here now if I didn't think we could do much more to keep children safe and protected. The will is there, the passion and the commitment are there. Together, we must do our utmost to protect children from suffering the same fate as Arthur and Star. I know this hope is what keeps you going. I share it. It is my hope too. And it's my belief that we can make it a reality by all of us working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Secretary of State. A really clear commitment around safeguarding and child protection working right across the system. Can I ask you because you were really clear there about your commitment, what are your particular priorities for child protection?
Well, I think, obviously we have to make sure children feel loved, respected, and they're given every opportunity to fulfil their potential. The outcomes are really, really bad. Actually, I think that's where we have to start. We have to start and say, these cases are very, very complex. They're not easy. None of these words are easy to action. But I think, everybody here knows that the right answers are the multi-agency approach, working very effectively, people feeling empowered to act, people having all the pieces of the picture in one place, and that's what makes these cases so complex. So I think we've built out obviously our set out our vision, stable homes built on love, which I think has been well received, but it's making sure that you've got the right mix of practitioners. It'll be different at different times, different ages, whatever the family needs. I've been to a couple of these centres and seen the interaction. Sometimes it is the school that has a big piece of the picture. Sometimes it's the police. Sometimes it's something that's going on outside of the home as well. There's a lot of very complex moving pieces, but I think that is really so. Two things: first of all, to put much more focus on it, and secondly, to really make sure that we go around this multi-agency working to turn those words into really effective action that's changing depending on the situation that it's facing.
Yeah, having that flexibility to respond to the individual needs of a child. Can I just pick up on, you're clear about your commitment, but we all know, and everybody in this room is very aware about how public media perceptions and awareness about those challenges you've just described is often weak. So what can government do to improve the public media awareness and confidence about child protection?
I mean, it's incredibly difficult. You get these shocking cases. Everybody is shocked by the cases. Everybody's looking to what went wrong, and of course, it's understandable that people are looking for answers. I think, first of all, we've got to be really clear that those people who are causing harm are the people who are actually wrong here. So I think that's something that we must always be really, really, really clear. Those people who harm children are first and foremost to blame. But it is vital that we all work together so that we don't leave a piece which it leaves us open to a lot of criticism later on. And all you can do there is basically try and do that as quickly and as much as possible. When things do go wrong, obviously we need to be open and we need to be continuously looking at how we can improve the systems. But I think also by recognising that these are incredibly complex situations, incredibly difficult jobs, and the people who do those jobs need the support to enable them to be able to do the jobs as best as possible. I don't think there's anybody that would ever sit there and think, these are easy roles to do, or even most people would sit there and think that this is what I want to do. So those that are doing it should be celebrated, should be thanked, because these are incredibly tough jobs to do.
Yeah, yes, it's that having that sense of appreciation of the complexity and challenge. Just there, you're talking about sort of working together. How are you working across government with your ministerial colleagues to make sure that there is that focus on child protection and safeguarding?
Well, obviously setting up the ministerial group has been really important. And it's funny when I've worked for many, many years before becoming a politician, and you often wonder, well, what's the point of all these groups? What do they actually do? I think the ministerial groups really do mean that the departments are working much more effectively together, because it isn't just, on the ground getting multi-agencies to work together. It's also making sure that in government as well, we work much more closely together as well. So the ministerial focus, they've met a number of times now. Claire Coutinho's chairing it, Children and Families Minister, who's brilliant. And it really just brings together health, the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice, local authorities under DLUC, etc., to just always be asking that question, what more can we be doing? What more can we be doing to support this working together? What are the barriers that we need to work together to get things out of the way? What data sets should we be sharing? How can we unblock some of those, long-standing things, which these things sound easy to say. The reason they haven't happened is because they're complex, right? Yeah. So sometimes you do need to have that extra oversight to unblock things.
Great. And just sort of one last question, because I can see the red card being flagged up here. Can you tell us just something about the Families First Pathfinder programme, and particularly how other agencies, as we've got a multi-agency audience, might get involved in those?
Well, first of all, we will be announcing very soon. I know it's probably much anticipated, but hopefully within this month, we hope to announce the first 3 areas. And then very much we need to co-design with all of the agencies. So really need to get everybody involved in making sure that we really use this. This is our chance to really reform, to look at opportunities to reform, look at best practice, look at where we can change how the systems work. So we'll be announcing the first 3. We will co-design then, those pathfinders, and then we'll be announcing more later on in the year. So it is a real opportunity, I think, a real moment for all of us to take the time to get involved and to get it right. And anybody who has views, opinions, experience, we're very much looking to input those into the Pathfinders.
And I think that really kind of speaks to the title of this conference, which is about reimagining child protection. So, I mean, it's in relation to child protection, but family help, trying to do things differently in a stronger multi-agency way.
Yeah, and as more upfront, or upstream as possible. I mean, obviously we've got supporting families now as well. All of the things, all the pieces I think we have together. We've also got investments in family hubs. There's more and more pieces of the infrastructure puzzle also coming together as well. So I think this is really a good moment where we put lots of things together, but then we really challenge ourselves as to how we can design a system that we think will have a massive impact, so that you don't have things where you're looking at it thinking, if only we'd have done that differently.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Can we all thank Secretary of State for
Thank you.
joining us today? Thank you. And really appreciate it, because I know you have an incredibly busy, full diary. So really important that you've come for what I think is the first time Safeguarding Partners and others have come together, certainly in recent times. So really appreciate you joining us. And thank you for sharing your reflections and giving us a real sense of the direction that government's taking with child protection.
Well, thank you, and thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for everything you're all doing, and will, I know, continue to do. And I look forward to continue to work with you.
Great.
Thank you
very much indeed.